suicide, drug use, violence, and blasphemy have long been common themes in rock albums and at many concerts. But now, according to sources, they're beginning to hurt the rock industry. Sam Walker has this report, but we'd like to caution you that this story does contain some material that may shock you, and you may not want your children to see or hear.
There are songs about glorifying incest. There are songs about rape, thrill killing, sadomasochism. There's a song that goes, quote, "Not a woman but a whore, I can taste the hate. Well, now I'm killing you. Watch your face turning blue," unquote, by a group that has sold 2 million copies of that particular album. They're very popular with young kids.
The album includes songs like 4F Club, Finder, Feeler, Fucker, and Forgetter, Free Fix for a Clap Queen, My Erection is Over, and the song Golden Showers.
One thing is for sure, Satan sells.
Em um mundo onde a arte é muitas vezes confundida com uma ameaça, a música sempre teve um papel fundamental em escancarar as feridas da sociedade, seja denunciando injustiças, protestando contra governos ou simplesmente dando voz à revolta de uma geração. As letras cantadas carregam consigo o poder de provocar, e com esse poder vem o medo institucional, o medo moralista, o medo das mudanças culturais. Eu sou Gabriel Cesário e no vídeo de hoje do Véu do Desconhecido iremos adentrar em uma das maiores cruzadas morais da história da música: o surgimento do selo Parental Advisory, um símbolo que, por trás de sua pretensa função de proteção, escondeu por muito tempo os tentáculos da censura e da tentativa desesperada de controle da juventude americana. Nos anos 80, a sociedade americana enfrentava uma profunda crise cultural. A televisão a cabo levava para dentro dos lares conteúdos mais ousados, a popularização do videoclipe ampliava o alcance das bandas e artistas, e os jovens estavam cada vez mais distantes dos valores tradicionais defendidos por instituições religiosas e conservadoras. Havia uma tensão crescente entre a liberdade individual e a tentativa de preservação de uma moral familiar idealizada. Uma tensão que encontrou na música seu principal campo de batalha. Foi nesse cenário de polarização que surgiu a Parents Music Resource Center, mais conhecida como PMRC. Criada em 1985, a organização era formada por esposas de políticos influentes, incluindo Tipper Gore, esposa do então senador Al Gore. O grupo alegava estar preocupado com o conteúdo das músicas que seus filhos ouviam, mas a linguagem usada por elas rapidamente revelava algo mais profundo, uma tentativa de estabelecer um padrão moral absoluto e ser seguido por toda a sociedade.
Mary Elizabeth Gore says she was shocked at what she was hearing. Gore is the mother of 4 and the wife of a United States senator. She's joined with other influential women to form the Parents Music Resource Center.
Well, my 11-year-old likes Prince. However, on the album Purple Rain, there is a song called Darling Nikki, which deals with the subject of masturbation, and that is in the lyrics. I did not feel that was appropriate for my then 10-year-old child to have purchased.
Like Gore's group, the National PTA is asking record companies to voluntarily label records, tapes, and cassettes that may be considered obscene.
A PMRC elaborou uma lista com músicas que, segundo elas, representavam o que havia de mais depravado na indústria. Essa lista ficou conhecida como a Filthy 15, os 15 imundos. Entre os nomes citados estavam Prince, AC/DC, Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, Madonna, Judas Priest, Venom, Mercyful Fate e até mesmo Cyndi Lauper. Era uma seleção eclética e isso demonstrava como o critério da PMRC era altamente subjetivo. O ataque era direto, nominal e simbólico. Uma tentativa de rotular como perigosos artistas que ousavam transgredir as normas culturais vigentes.
This is Motley Crue. Their albums for Electra Asylum sell millions and they're one of the top 10 grossing concert bands this year. Their albums include songs like Livewire, quote, "I'll either break her face or take down her legs, get my ways at will, go for the throat, never let loose, going in for the kill.
They say, oh, they're bad, they're evil. But we're not bad, we're not evil. We're just creating great music, and we're having a really good time. But obviously, it's just like with Elvis Presley. I mean, look, they went and photographed him from the crotch down, right?
A proposta era simples e, ao mesmo tempo, extremamente perigosa. Rotular os discos considerados inapropriados com um selo de advertência. Surgia assim o famigerado Parental Advisory, Explicit Lyrics, um selo que, em tese, serviria apenas para alertar os pais, mas que na prática passou a servir como uma ferramenta de boicote, censura e marginalização cultural.
I think that the music in hell for eternity be some of this rock music with all its vulgarities and all of its innuendos.
They want to try to justify their strobe lights and their weird wild suits and their pink hair and their yellow hair and singing their rock songs and smoke bombs going off as glorifying the Holy Ghost.
Now let's begin with an album by a group that is pretty notorious, the group called KISS. Now, number one, you would see that certain parts of the men's uniforms all accentuate the genitals of a male. I just have to be very explicit here. Now, this album is entitled Mob Rules. A couple of things stand out to me. Now, faceless creatures in robes that, to me, would, from my study, certainly symbolize druids, which, of course, go back to Satan worship. In the blood stains, there is very definitely, without any shadow of a doubt here, a face of Satan.
Heavy metal has taken the position for 10 years that they are under no social responsibility. Zero. And they have not self-policed themselves. They have not done anything to show that they are going to have a social conscience. And they now have to pay a price for what they've done.
I am condemning those lyrics which promote drug and alcohol use that make it very glamorous.
The message that rock stars are singing today is that love equals sex and sex equals love, that love is purely recreational, it's a thing that is fun, there are no commitments, no responsibilities and no consequences.
Em 19 de setembro de 1985, o Senado dos Estados Unidos promoveu uma audiência pública para debater a proposta da PMRC. O que era para ser uma sessão sobre liberdade de expressão versus responsabilidade artística acabou se tornando um verdadeiro tribunal ideológico. Era como se os músicos precisassem provar que sua arte merecia existir, e isso dizia muito sobre o movimento político e social da época.
Pyromania, no question. Burn the building. Burn, burn, burn.
In 1985, heavy metal music came under fire. Rock and roll, especially hard rock and roll, was due for its biggest public trial since the 1950s when the Parent Music Resource Center conducted congressional hearings to discuss the imagery, lyrics, and moral suggestions of heavy metal music. No band was safe, as the loudest kind of rock was attacked from every conceivable angle.
Entre os convidados para depor estavam 3 músicos: Frank Zappa, conhecido por sua mente crítica e ironia mordaz; John Denver, astro do folk, que surpreendeu muitos por sua postura firme em defesa da liberdade artística; e Dee Snider, vocalista da banda de heavy metal Twisted Sister.
I'm here to address the issue of a possible rating system in the recording industry, labeling records where excesses of explicit sex or graphic violence have occurred, and furthermore references to drugs and alcohol or the occult are included in the lyrics. These hearings have been called to determine whether or not the government should intervene to enforce this practice. Mr. Chairman, this would approach censorship. May I be very clear that I am strongly opposed to censorship of any kind in our society or anywhere else in the world. I've had in my experience 2 encounters with the sort of censorship. My song Rocky Mountain High was banned from many radio stations as a drug-related song. This was obviously done by people who had never seen or been to the Rocky Mountains and also had never experienced the elation, the celebration of life, or the joy in living that one feels when he observes something as wondrous as the Perseid meteor shower. On a moonless and cloudless night, when there are so many stars that you have a shadow from the starlight. and you're out camping with your friends, your best friends, and introducing them to one of nature's most spectacular light shows for the very first time. Obviously a clear case of misinterpretation. Discipline and self-restraint, when practiced by an individual, a family, or a company, is an effective way to deal with this issue. The same thing when forced on a people by their government, or worse, by a self-appointed watchdog of public morals, is suppression and will not be tolerated in a democratic society. Mr. Chairman, the suppression of a people or of a society begins, in my mind, with the censorship of the written or spoken word. It was so in Nazi Germany. It is so in many places today where those in power are afraid of the consequences of an informed and educated people. In a mature and incredibly diverse society such as ours, the access to all perspectives of an issue becomes more and more important. Those things which in our experience are undesirable generally prove to be unfurthering and sooner or later become boring. That process cannot and should not be stifled. On the other hand, that which is denied becomes that which is most interesting.
The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children, and promises to keep the courts busy for years dealing with the interpretational and enforcemental problems inherent in the proposal's design. It is my understanding that, in law, First Amendment issues are decided with a preference for the least restrictive alternative. In this context, the PMRC demands are the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation. No one has forced Mrs. Baker or Mrs. Gore to bring Prince or Sheena Easton into their homes. Thanks to the Constitution, they are free to buy other forms of music for their children. Apparently, they insist on purchasing the works of contemporary recording artists in order to support a personal illusion of aerobic sophistication. Ladies, please be advised, the $8.98 purchase price does not entitle you to a kiss on the foot from the composer or performer in exchange for a spin on the family Victrola.
Snyder foi subestimado desde o começo. Muitos esperavam encontrar um roqueiro desinformado e com vocabulário limitado. Mas o que se viu foi o oposto. Dee Snider tomou o microfone com confiança que deixou os senadores desconcertados. Ele desmontou ponto a ponto as alegações da PMRC, expondo falhas graves de interpretação e preconceitos morais disfarçados de preocupação para...
Since I seem to be the only person addressing this committee today who has been a direct target of accusations from the presumably responsible PMRC, I would like to use this occasion to speak on a more personal note and show just how unfair the whole concept of lyrical interpretation and judgment can be, and how many times this can amount to little more than character assassination. I have taken the liberty of distributing to you material and lyrics pertaining to these accusations. There were 3 attacks in particular which I would like to address. Accusation number 1. This attack was contained in an article written by Tipper Gore, which was given the form of a full page in my hometown newspaper on Long Island. In this article, Ms. Gore claimed that one of my songs, Under the Blade, had lyrics encouraging sadomasochism, bondage, and rape. The lyrics she quoted have absolutely nothing to do with these topics. On the contrary, the words in question are about surgery and the fear that it instills in people. Furthermore, the reader of this article is led to believe that the 3 lines she quotes go together in the song, when, as you can see from reading the lyrics, the first 2 lines she cites are an edited phrase from the 2nd verse, and the 3rd line is a misquote of a line from the chorus. That the writer could misquote me is curious, since we make it a point to print all our lyrics on the inner sleeve of every album. As the creator of Under the Blade, I can say categorically that the only sadomasochism, bondage, and in this song is in the mind of Ms. Gore. Accusation number 2. The PMRC has made public a list of 15 of what they feel are some of the most blatant songs lyrically. On this list is our song, We're Not Gonna Take It, upon which has been bestowed a V rating indicating violent lyrical content. You'll note from the lyrics before you that there is absolutely no violence of any type either sung about or implied anywhere in the song. Now, it strikes me that the PMRC may have confused our video presentation for this song with the meaning of the lyrics. It's no secret that videos often depict storylines completely unrelated to the lyrics of the song they accompany. The video for We're Not Gonna Take It was simply meant to be a cartoon with human actors playing variations on the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote theme. Each stunt was selected from my extensive personal collection of cartoons. You'll note when you watch the entire video that after each catastrophe our villain suffers through, in the next sequence he reappears unharmed by any previous attack, no worse for the wear. By the way, I'm very pleased to note that the United Way of America has been granted a request to use portions of our We're Not Gonna Take It video in a program they are producing on the subject of the changing American family. They asked for it because of its, quote, lighthearted way of talking about communicating with teenagers, unquote. It is gratifying that an organization as respected as the United Way of America appreciates where we're coming from. I've included a copy of the United Way's request as part of my written testimony. Thank you, United Way. Accusation number 3. Last Tuesday, a public forum regarding the lyric controversy was held in New York. Among the panelists was Ms. Gore. Trying to stem the virtual tidal wave of anti-rating sentiment coming from the audience, Ms. Gore made the following statement, quote, I agree this is a small percentage of all music, thank goodness, but it's becoming more mainstream. You look at even the t-shirts the kids are wearing, and you see Twisted Sister and a woman in handcuffs sort of spread-eagled, unquote. This is an outright lie. Not only have we never sold a shirt of this type, we have always taken great pains to steer clear of sexism in our merchandise, records, stage show, and personal lives. Furthermore, we have always promoted the belief that rock and roll should not be sexist, but should cater to males and females equally. I feel that an accusation of this type is irresponsible, damaging to our reputation, and slanderous. I defy Ms. Gore to produce such a shirt to back up her claim. I'm tired of running into kids on the street who tell me that they can't play our records anymore because of the misinformation their parents are being fed by the PMRC on TV and in the newspapers. These are the only 3 accusations I've come across. All 3 are totally unfounded. Who knows what other false and irresponsible things have been said about me or my band. There happens to be one area where I'm in complete agreement with the PMRC, as well as the National PTA and probably most of the parents on this committee. That is, it is my job as a parent to monitor what my children see, hear, and read during their preteen years. The full responsibility for this falls on the shoulders of my wife and I because there is no one else capable of making these judgments for us. Parents can thank the PMRC for reminding them that there is no substitute for parental guidance, but that is where the PMRC's job ends. The beauty of literature, poetry, and music is that they leave room for the audience to put its own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the words. The examples I cited earlier showed clear evidence of Twisted Sister's music being completely misinterpreted and unfairly judged by supposedly well-informed adults. We cannot allow this to continue. There is no authority who has the right or the necessary insight to make these judgments. Not myself, not the federal government, not some recording industry committee, not the PTA, not the RIAA, and certainly not the PMRC.
Apesar dos discursos, o selo Parental Advisory foi implementado. A indústria fonográfica, pressionada politicamente, cedeu. A partir de então, qualquer álbum que contivesse letras consideradas inapropriadas deveria estampar a etiqueta. O que parecia ser apenas uma medida informativa, logo se mostrou como uma arma simbólica poderosa.
Who are looking for help in monitoring the music their youngsters listen to now have assistance. Beginning in July, this label, which you're about to see, Parental Advisory, Explicit Lyrics, will appear on albums whose songs explicitly deal with sex, violence, suicide, and substance abuse. The label will appear on the lower right-hand corner at the discretion of record companies and individual artists. The Recording Industry Association, representing 90% of all records sold in the U.S., backs the label.
We believe the uniform logo will enhance the existing voluntary system. and better respond to the legitimate concerns of parents and retailers.
We don't think that the government should determine what our children listen to. And I mean that as an artist and also as a parent. I think it's more of a parent's responsibility. We don't think that politicians have that power to determine what our children listen to.
Mas o que era para ser uma marca de vergonha virou símbolo de status. Os álbuns com o selo Parental Advisory passaram a ser mais desejados pelos jovens. O aviso, ironicamente, se tornou uma espécie de certificado de autenticidade rebelde. Para bandas de rock, rap e de punk, o selo servia como um marketing involuntário, um chamariz irresistível para quem buscava autenticidade fora do sistema.
But the kids will tell you the parents can't be everywhere.
I don't think the mother can stop the child from listening to the radio or watching TV.
Hey, why should they, put a limit to what I want to listen to? It's a free country. We can do whatever we want to do.
My parents don't like me listening to the music, but I explain to them that it's just normal music.
Artistas como Eminem e Marilyn Manson passaram a enfrentar boicotes em rádios, redes de loja e canais de televisão, mas também ganharam notoriedade e reforçaram ainda mais o discurso contra a moral seletiva imposta pela elite política e religiosa. A censura, ao invés de silenciar, amplificava. A cruzada da PMRC revelava mais sobre os medos da elite do que sobre a música em si. A preocupação nunca foi com os filhos ouvindo palavrões, mas com a autonomia que a música dava a eles. A arte, como sempre, desafiava o status quo, e esse desafio incomodava. A censura parecia recair sempre sobre o que é novo. O moralismo era seletivo, e a seletividade escancarava preconceitos estruturais. Ao fim das contas, o Parental Advisory revelou uma verdade incômoda. A luta moralista quase nunca é sobre proteger, é sobre controlar. O selo ainda existe, ainda está em capas de discos, mas hoje também serve como memória viva de uma batalha cultural que escancarou a hipocrisia de uma sociedade que finge se chocar com letras, mas fecha os olhos para realidades muito mais perigosas do que qualquer verso cantado com raiva.
You don't like the stuff? Don't listen to it. Simple as that.